Hello, and welcome to episode 56 of Cora's Place. I'm so glad you've chosen to join me for today's conversation. In today's episode, I'll be talking about embracing differences in relationships. As always, if you like what you hear, please leave a review and/or comments, follow my podcast, and tell your friends. Also, please follow the podcast page I've made on Facebook. If you'd like to contact me via email instead of a Facebook message, you can email me at corachin@mailbox.org. If you are new here, welcome! I'm your host, Cora, and I'm so excited to have you on this journey with me. Today, I want to talk about embracing differences in relationships. As I mentioned last week, I was texting one time with a good friend of mine, once, not too long from when I recorded this episode, and part of that text conversation actually made me think of this topic and the topic for episode 55, which was last week's episode. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. This is kind of a tough subject to make an episode on, if I'm being honest. Not because it's a bad topic, but because issues in any relationship can be a difficult thing to go through in life. It's important to work through them if possible, though. Also, if I say relationships, I don't mean just romantic relationships. I also mean relationships in families and also with friends. So if you hear me say relationships, please know that unless I specify romantic relationship, I mean any relationship at all. Relationships are not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Each one is special and unique in its own way, just like people and snowflakes. One of the things that is the same across all relationships, though, is that they require work to develop them. You cannot and should not expect a relationship in your life to grow if you do not work at getting to know the other person and spending time with them. It's not always easy to do that, but it is helpful. Sometimes you may not always agree with the decisions someone has made in their life. Examples of those kinds of decisions would be things like faith or spirituality, different things related to health or healthcare, romantic relationships, certain types of books, movies or music, social media, where to live, political opinions, purchases they have made, and that kind of thing. Just because you don't agree with them does not mean that you have to cut them out of your life or never speak to them again. Jesus loves everyone. Yes, some people are easier to love and get along with than others, but you don't have to put up walls just because you don't agree with someone or the decisions they made. It is possible to be friends with someone or be nice to them, even if they don't share some of the same interests as you. It is okay and even normal sometimes to not agree on everything in a relationship with someone. I think that happens in every relationship at some point. When it does happen, it can feel hard, but if you work at it and stick with it, it might get better. You may not be proud of the decisions they have made, but if I'm being honest, you can't and probably shouldn't force someone to make the decision you want them to make. It can be hard to love and support someone who makes different decisions than you that you don't think are very wise, but people still need love and support from someone in their life, regardless of what you think of their decision. Yes, it might seem hard or pointless sometimes to love someone who has made a different life decision than you, since they didn't make a decision you agree with. However, they still need love and care. You don't have to confront them about it and make them feel guilty. That is not the right response to that kind of situation. You have to love them and care about them even when they make a decision like that. It's hard, but doing that is a better route than shutting them out of your life or quitting on them. In a situation I have recently faced in my life with a friend, as I record this episode, and actually the same friend I had the good texting conversation with that I mentioned earlier, I have decided that I'm not going to call quits on that friendship just because we don't share all of the same beliefs anymore or because of decisions they have made. That's not what true friendship is. True friendship is not giving up on someone you love and care about. My relationship with this friend is definitely different now than it used to be because we both have different beliefs and interests in life than we used to, but I still absolutely love being friends with them so much. I want you to please know that I don't mean any of this in a way that makes you think I have this down perfectly or that makes you think I don't care about your current hard situation in your life. I am honestly just trying to share my opinion on this subject and some thoughts that might hopefully be a help and encouragement to you. The truth is, your situations in life that you are dealing with do matter and are important, even when it may not seem like it matters to other people. Just because some people don't support your dreams or care about them does not mean that all people won't care. There are other people who will care about them more than others. While it would be nice for all people to care about your dreams and goals, and vice versa, that isn't always possible, unfortunately. I think that the people who are your true friends will care more about them than others will. Sometimes, your differences may cause arguments or disagreements, but please don't let that destroy your relationships. Every relationship will face things like that at some point. Don't be discouraged if you start to realize that situation is happening for you. It can be possible to work through things if you try. I have actually faced moments of conflict or disagreement with the friend I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that I had the good text conversation with. But thankfully, as I record this, she and I have been able to work through all of them successfully. The conflict/disagreement we did have one time didn't escalate to a full-blown argument, but my friend and I just weren't seeing eye to eye on some things, so she and I decided together to take a break from texting each other for a little while. It was definitely hard at first for me, but I eventually got used to it. It wasn't a very long break, though, only a couple of weeks or so. My friendship with her now, at least when I'm recording this, is much closer, and we share more vulnerable things with each other than ever before. I share things with her now that I don't usually share with as many people. I feel like our conversations are also just deeper now, too. Like I said earlier, I have known her for basically my whole life, but we didn't really start to get a whole lot closer until recent months or years, recent from when I'm recording this. It doesn't necessarily take the pain away of the big friendship loss I faced in 2020, but it definitely does help. I think there will always be pain to some degree from that situation. I shared about that friendship loss with my friend recently meaning as I record this, and she seemed understanding and willing to listen. It has gotten easier to talk about it, but it is still hard at times. I think part of the reason why it's still hard is because it was a big wound and it has left a scar as it is healed. Not a physical scar that people can see though, but an emotional scar. Deep wounds in life like that will leave a scar. I'm not sure if it will ever fully heal, and it may still hurt sometimes, but I think that over time, it gets better and better. It doesn't usually bother me as much as I record this as it did at first, but I do still think about it occasionally, and that's okay. It will always be a part of my memories, but I don't have to let it control my life or dictate my feelings if I don't want it to. The same thing is true with your hard situation. It does not have to control your life or your feelings. I think that it's okay to think about it occasionally, but if you find yourself constantly dwelling on it, you may need to get professional help or something like that. Yes, it can be hard to not think about it, but I think that the busier you stay, in moderation of course, the easier it is to not think about it as much or often. What I mean by that is you don't have to be busy constantly just to avoid thinking about whatever you are facing. You can still think about it sometimes. You just don't want it to be the central focus in your mind. That doesn't just apply to friendships, though. I think that it could apply to any hard situation. I think it is normal, initially, for it to be on your mind a lot, but that's okay. If it just happened, you have to take time to process the situation and your feelings. Don't just shove your emotions into a box and stick the box on a high shelf in the closet. It's okay to sit with them and process them, as long as you don't stay in them for too long and get yourself stuck in them. Not an actual box, shelf, or closet, though. I was just using that to help you visualize it better. I guess I think of it kind of like an analogy, basically. Sometimes, if I use pictures or analogies like that in my head, it helps me think through things a little easier. It depends on the situation, though. I don't necessarily do that with everything, but just some things. Anyway, I don't want you to feel like you are alone in whatever situation you are going through. So if you feel like talking to somebody would be helpful, please reach out to me and I will try to help if I can. I don't have skill in every situation though, so I may have to point you to someone else if you have a situation I cannot help with. I am also not a licensed counselor or therapist, so I may not be as effective as that could be for you. I think just having someone to talk to can be helpful, especially if they have knowledge or expertise in whatever area you are wanting help in. It can be really helpful to know that you have someone who is willing to listen when you need help. I know that it usually tends to help me, but it also depends on the situation. Sometimes it might take a little longer to process, but that is okay and even normal at times. You are not expected to entirely process a huge or hard situation right away. I feel like that would be an unrealistic expectation. I definitely can't do that when I'm facing that kind of thing. I prefer taking it slow with processing because that feels a little less overwhelming to me than trying to process a whole situation at one time. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please follow, leave a comment, and a review of my podcast if you haven't already, and please follow my podcast page on Facebook so you never miss an update. If you have any verses you'd like me to read on a future episode, or if you have any topics you'd like me to talk about, you can email me at corachin@mailbox.org, or you can send me a message on my podcast page on Facebook through the link in the show notes, and I will get back to you when I can. Hope you tune in next week for episode 57.